Ready?
All right. Yeah.
3, 2,
1, roll.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in podcast land. Brendan Cunningham, the real estate doctor at EXP. With me, Matt Paul. Does it all. You know what? We're going to pick up immediately where we left off last week. And now we're going to ask about something that I think is kind of important.
Yeah.
Key point indicators.
Mm-hmm.
And you're looking out there and you're saying, what the hell is he talking about? Key point. All right. If you were going to be talking to either a buyer or a seller, what would be and you could only use one, what would be the one key? You'll see what we mean. We're going to stick with this. We're taking you along for a ride. What would be the one key point indicator that you want to discuss?
DOM.
DOM. Oh, man, he's going to start with this crazy abbreviation again.
Oh, sorry. I had to do it.
You're killing me.
I don't think we did talk about that when we were talking.
Well, that's
acronyms.
one of the, because there's so many of them.
There are.
But DOM, of all of the acronyms that are out there, that's one that everyone should really tune into, because what is it?
It's days on market.
Days on market.
Yep.
Days on market, critical piece of information. Whether you're a buyer or a seller, let's think about this a second. If you're a buyer and your days on market, a property's on the market for 150 days,
Mm-hmm.
do you think the seller might be a little more negotiable?
I would think so.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I mean, if it's on the market for 1 day,
Yeah. Nope.
that's a red hot property. You may not have as much bargaining power on something like that. So it becomes a critical piece of the puzzle. I saw this too. I thought this was interesting. We're going to come back to that a little bit. I get this magazine, Success Magazine. You get it.
Yep.
All of us at EXP get this magazine. It's a great magazine. And the publisher, who's just a doll, Amy Somerville, smart as a whip. I think she's stealing our lines. Son of a gun.
We're all doing the same thing.
Everyone's
here.
ripping us off.
What the heck?
Okay. But so days on market, critical piece of the puzzle.
Absolutely. Especially, as you were mentioning with buyers, if you have a buyer that's been, unfortunately lost several offers,
Which happens.
Been in the hunt for, months or even years, and then they're just beaten up and kind of discouraged. I do search properties that have been on the market for, 30, 50, 60 days, all depending on the market. And so most of the time, that's where you can actually get a deal.
And you know what's interesting about that? When you talk to agents, it's all relative.
Yeah.
And when you talk to agents, if you talk to an agent like today, they'll say, oh my God, I got a listing that's been on the market forever. You say, how long has it been on? You say, 30 days.
Yeah. But as we're going to talk about soon, why 30 days in our market is different than, let's say, Fort Lauderdale.
Oh!
Yes.
You can check the other thing, see if half of the body got eaten by the shark. But in the meantime, Stevie's still alive. He's breathing.
Yes.
Days on market, yeah. Oddly enough, we were chatting recently, and I said, I had a guy, he's looking at crazy property. Been on the market for 152 days. And I said, sure enough, he puts an offer in. There's 2 offers.
Yeah.
They just come out of the woodwork.
Yeah.
As soon as you want, it happens.
Yeah, it happens all the time. It's Murphy's Law.
But the days on the market is a critical piece of the puzzle. And then you talked about Lauderdale. I wrote some statistical transference around here. Right now, in our market of Buffalo, New York, Buffalo, Niagara, Erie County, the absorption rate, 1.3 months. That means there's a little bit over a month's worth of inventory.
Just a touch over a month.
So if we sold all the inventory that we could, it'd take about a month. Interesting information. Lauderdale, how many months?
13, you said?
13.9.
Yeah, so almost 14.
Almost, over a year.
It's something we haven't seen in a very long time.
I think that's one of the, how shall I say it, one of the slower markets in the United States. Yep. Florida, in many respects, there's lots of pockets.
Yes.
And I was looking in Florida around Clearwater. Another one. Clearwater was about 12 months.
Wow.
Which was shocking.
Yeah.
It's shocking to us, but it's probably not shocking to them because they're living with it.
Yep. See,
we live with this, and it becomes a critical.
Yes, and the absorption rate has been very similar. I think you mentioned last year it was, what, 1.5?
Well, in terms of actual days on market last year.
Okay.
So it's right now, the days on the market is 25.
Yep.
Last year was 28.
Yeah.
All right, it's about 15% difference.
Yeah.
Not a great, but it's different. Okay, but even going from 28 to 25 says that even though there's more listings now than there were a month ago, they're selling fast.
So, yes, exactly. We still don't have the inventory.
We still don't have the inventory. So that's why we're kind of chasing it. I looked at some other numbers. Days on market. days on market will be different in different price categories.
Absolutely.
They'll be different in different towns.
Yep.
But different price categories. So if I have a really cheap house
And
versus a really expensive house,
Yep.
oddly enough, you'd use the inverted U curve.
Yep. The bell curve. Yep.
Right? The old bell curve.
Yep.
That was the most important thing I think I learned in college.
I remember that too.
The expensive houses take a long time to sell.
Yes, exactly. And what's expensive around here, right? So in Western New York, a less expensive would be $100,000 to $200,000 house. And
the average right now is $275.
Yep. Yeah.
It means $245, but the average is $275.
Yeah. So you're sub 300,000 on the in this market, and then on the higher end you're in the million. At the million point, and those houses that are
the super expensive and the dogs.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Or the real cheap ones. They
Yep.
take a longer time to sell. They
Yep.
just do. And
Yep.
you can track it. Oddly, the Buffalo News and most of the local newscasters, they love to talk about the $1 million houses that's selling.
they sure do.
Everyone thinks there's lots of $1 million houses that sell.
A lot more this year, but
Well, oddly enough, we just broke the record. We sold more houses over $1 million this year in 24.
Yep.
We're in 25 now.
Yep.
Than we did in 23. And what was the magic number of all these $1 million houses? 82. 82. Now, is that a lot? Well, it's not if you consider that last year, just in the Buffalo Niagara Association of Realtors statistics,
Yep.
12,830 houses sold in 2024. Okay.
82.
82. What's the percentage? It's about 0.65%. Less than 1%. That was a record. Oh, and everyone talks about it. Let's have another glass of champagne.
Yep.
And that's fine. It's a good thing. Prices are continuing to go up. We know that.
Yep.
But you know what? The $1 million house, and there's not a lot of $1 million houses in South.
No, I'm not
think
aware of
there's
any.
any.
Me either.
But there's some very nice houses and very, very well priced houses.
Absolutely.
And really low taxes.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Yep.
that's a good thing.
That's a huge incentive.
But yeah, so when you look at these things, so if when people would talk about the expensive properties, I'd always say, just remember, it's going to take longer to sell. Well, what do you mean? And I would say, the air is thin at the top.
Yeah. Well, then if you were to check the days on market in this market with how very little inventory we have, and then you just mentioned to a buyer, well, if this market is now a buyer's market, when you go to sell, that time you can't compare a seller's market to a buyer's market with days on market.
No.
You're going to be completely different.
Yeah.
And a lot longer on the market.
Yeah, and I can remember different training programs I've taken over the years, and one of the trainers said, this is real simple. When you're going to talk to a seller, he says, what's more important to you, time or money?
Yeah.
I said, well, they're both important. But if you had to pick one,
Yeah.
it's like the old thing about, all right, Italian food or Chinese food? You can only pick one. What would you pick?
Over Italian or Chinese?
Yeah.
I would pick Italian.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
I'd probably pick Chinese, even though I like Italian food. But if I had to eat it every day, I don't know. But then the other one is Beatles versus Elvis.
Oh,
Right?
that's a tough one. I'd probably do Elvis.
Yeah, I'd probably go with the Beatles, but that's all right.
Hey, yin and yang.
Even though the first record I ever bought was Elvis Presley's Hound Dog.
Oh, cool.
The flip side was Don't Be Cruel.
Oh, there you go.
45.
That's awesome.
Yeah, crazy. I think I was 7. Mom, can I get a record?
So I like Johnny Cash at that time.
Oh, yeah.
Johnny Cash.
Yeah. But where was I going with
We
Jimmy
get a little sidetracked every once in a while. It happens. But yeah, no, with the days on market and with the higher end, the higher end of the pricing in our market, they are still, taking at least a month or so to sell, if not longer. I know we had an agent on our team, Lori, that had a I think it was just over 2, and then she sold it just under what?
Well, that was really strange because it was an expensive house, and then the guy decided the day that he closed it, he didn't want it.
Yeah.
And she sold it again.
Yep, she sold it again.
And she turned them. And she told them very quickly.
Absolutely, yeah. But that was still, I think, a 6-month listing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, even though that, they're nice to have, you do tend to sit on them a little bit longer as a listing agent.
Yeah, and it's a different methodology when you have a longer engagement with a property. Sometimes you have to take price reductions.
The marketing efforts are a lot different.
The marketing efforts are different. It's interesting because one of the, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's a thing in the real estate business. We get inundated with statistical analysis, analytics all over the place. But one of the really important analytics is if you look at the graphs of the activity on a listing.
Yep.
The lion's share of it, 90% of it happens in the first 6 weeks.
I was just going to say, yep.
And then that inverted yield drops off.
Yep. You might see a spike if there's a price reduction.
You get a few. Yeah.
If there's a little tweak in the marketing. But yes, you're right. It's heavy on the front end.
It's just what it is. And, unfortunately, there's only so many ways that you can market the property. And the key assets of the marketing any property is location. A lot of people say location. Price,
yep.
And condition.
Yep.
Well, chances are, if you've gotten the house market ready, the condition's as good as it's going to be. Location. Chances are,
you can't do anything about that
unless it's on wheels. It ain't going anywhere.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. If you're in a corner, you're always going to be on a corner.
You're in a corner. One of the things I always think is funny is when you look at the pictures, and you can go to Zillow and all these crazy sites, you can see pictures of the house, and that's good. But you always want to take a look. If you're not going to physically look at the property, you want to look at the.
Yeah, see what's around it.
See what's around it.
Yeah,
and with all of the things that are on the computer, you can actually go and see the neighborhood.
Yeah, Google Earth is
Google,
great.
Yeah, you can see the houses next door. I would usually take my little car and drive around the street, because this street could be good, the next street could not be good. So you got location, you can't change that, chances are, and you got condition, which you've probably already addressed. Well, then the last thing you have is price.
Yep.
And one thing we can always tell from whatever the price is, you don't have to be a genius for this, but if we only can figure out one thing, if the house didn't sell, well, all we know is the market didn't respond.
Yes. Yep.
So what can we change? Well, you can do more advertising.
Take new pictures, right?
You could do those things.
Yep.
Okay, one of those things is this. What are those things designed to do? They're designed to build traffic.
Yes.
So let's presume, because you've done a good job, you've had traffic coming out of your eyebrows. I mean, you've had open houses. You had 100 people at the open house, and then you had another open house, and you're into it for 3 weeks, and nobody has stepped up.
No offers.
No offers.
Yep.
The market has screamed at you and says, "Listen, nice house, but we're not stepping up." Yes. Why? It's one of those factors.
Yeah, well,
you can only change one.
That's true. Yep. And the price. Exactly.
What are you going to do?
Yep.
But yeah, it's screaming. And it's like, well, I don't know why it's not. So we'll spend more money on advertising. Well, we've already done that.
Yeah.
And you had, and 50, you have to do more. No.
And you have to pay attention to the feedback, right?
Yeah.
So, if you're having all that activity, and if agents are providing feedback, and most of the time you're going to get, and I've had a situation like that recently where everybody was saying it was overpriced. As soon
Maybe
as,
they're right.
Yeah.
Well, even if they're not right, we know one thing. The market did not respond.
No, and the market always dictates the price. It's right. We've said
always.
Whatever a seller is willing to sell and a buyer is willing to pay, that's the market value.
Yeah, and some people, I don't want to overpay. You can't actually overpay. You are just setting the market.
Yes. Yep.
You're setting the market.
Yep.
Now, I guess technically, if you had the property appraised and you paid cash and you paid more than what the appraisal was, did you overpay? You could make that argument that you did.
Yep.
I would just say, no, you set the market.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So as you're saying, if
Crimea River, you set the market.
Yeah.
You wanted it. Would you do it again? Oh yeah. Well then, shut up.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right.
Yep. Yeah. So with a cash offer, and
that's too real. That was too real.
That's full transparency.
Okay.
Yeah, with the cash offer, you're not subject to an appraisal, so there is nobody telling you that you overpaid. With a lended offer or a financed offer, you could have an appraisal issue.
You could.
If you went too far over, and the bank could say, we don't feel that it's worth that at that value. But again, there's all different things that we do if that is the case.
And that's an interesting scenario, because a lot of times, especially we're having, and right now we're still at, let me think, I did look at this number. Oh, another key
indicator.
Key point indicator. We have days on market, and then we have percentage of sale price.
Yes, that's a great one. Yeah.
Huge. Well, the percentage of sale price should be pretty high right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in point of fact, in 24, it was in 23, He was 104.5% of the listing price.
Yep.
So it's selling about 5% over the
Over
asking
that.
price. Okay. Today, it's 102.7.
Oh, wow.
So it's not quite 103. So it's still over the asking price, but not as much.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So
100% down.
But okay, so they're selling over the asking price still. And I typically think maybe 10, 15% over.
Yeah.
Is what I'm seeing. But every once in a while you get, we've had houses that had 60 offers.
Well, yeah.
And that's when the bidding gets crazy.
Yep.
And that's a relative term. But sometimes the agent might say, well, listen, you can accept this offer, but because it's so much over the asking price, I don't think this property is going to appraise. And that's when it's better to deal with the problem before it's a problem.
Yes.
If you know there's a mortgage involved, you know it's going to be subject to an appraisal.
Yep.
There might be some things you could consider. Like
Yes.
what would it be something that
Appraisal guarantee.
An appraisal guarantee. What is that?
So when the buyer is willing to pay X amount over, if it under appraises,
Let's
over
use real
the
numbers.
appraised
Let me
value.
just simple numbers. Let's say it appraises for 150. They pay 200.
Yep.
Just for the sake of it, you're not going to get houses in that price anymore.
No, but depending on how they wrote their offer, if they say I am willing to pay the asking price no matter what, or they could say I'm willing to do 5,000, 10,000, 1,000 over the appraised value. And then there's also the option where they say I'm not paying over the appraised value, I'm paying what it appraised.
Yeah. So there's different ways of dealing with it, and some of them work to your satisfaction, and some of them don't.
Yeah.
But you got to be aware, and the best time to be aware is before these things happen.
Absolutely. Yep.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't want to get to the stage where you're 4 or 5 weeks into it. There's a mortgage, and it
you've
comes
spent
back.
over $1,000 already on the loan application and everything else.
You maybe had a home inspection. You spent some money here. Yeah. So you got to have some sort of way of dealing with it. Good agent watches. They watch. They're like sailors. If you've ever sailed with a good sailor, they're amazing what they can do. They read the weather like, oh yeah, it's a storm. I don't see a storm.
The current, the wind,
everything. God.
Yep. A lot of factors come into play.
A lot of but a good sailor, they know they can anticipate things so far.
They navigate right through it.
Yeah, and that's what you want. Somebody can navigate right through all this stuff.
Yep.
Because you don't want to have problems. I mean, one of the key point indicators, which I think I don't even write it down because I think it's I've never
in your brain.
it fries me. Is when somebody says, "Well, my closing ratio, I'm at 91.3%. That means that of all the properties I sell, about 1 out of 10 doesn't close."
Yeah.
See, I don't like that number.
Oh, no, I don't like that either.
Here's my number, 100%.
Yeah.
You work with me. Once I get past the home inspection, you're closing. I've got all the ducks in the row at that point. I'm really conscientious about that. Because I don't want to, there was a commercial, the heartbreak of psoriasis.
Yeah.
This is the heartbreak of having a transaction not closed.
Yeah.
And to brag that you only have 1 out of 10 is not a good.
Yeah, that's a number that I'd leave off your resume.
Stop. Actually, I put it out there.
Yeah.
I say, here's the deal. If you're talking to other people, this is one of the numbers they're going to talk about. Here. It's stupid.
Yeah, I know, right?
Right?
Yeah, I don't know how anybody would agree to work with that.
Yeah. People do goofy things. They focus on the wrong things. Key point indicators. You going to say something?
Nope.
Okay.
No, I think the key point indicators are very, very important, though, as you mentioned, and it's it's good to know, and good to have a solid agent that is aware of what those indicators are, what all the numbers mean, and how they can benefit you.
Yeah, another thing. This is not necessarily a key point indicator, but in terms of numbers, a lot of times people will, when they're especially when they're talking to sellers, well, yeah, but I put a roof on last year and it was $20,000, and I did. Yeah, so your house that was $200, you put the roof on, you think it's worth $220 now. Yeah. Not necessarily the case.
No.
You don't always get dollar for dollar on maintenance items.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Those are maintenance items. People, and it's funny how, I don't know, buyers just kind of expect to get a roof on a house.
It's like a
that
car.
doesn't leak.
If you bring in a car and a trade in, and you just put wheels and tires and brakes on it, you don't get anything else for that.
No.
I've had that happen.
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh, there goes a couple grand, and the value's just going down.
Yeah.
So similar with with real estate, it can happen.
It does happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what do we think is going to be happening now that we're into April? And we're not going to talk about the weather because everyone
Yeah.
talks about it. No one does anything about it. So it's interesting. It's like we're going into the spring market. Our inventory is increasing. Our days on market are
Decreasing a little.
decreasing.
Yep.
But
It's competitive out there.
yeah,
It's
so
real competitive.
I think we're going to see a lot more of the same.
Yep. And I've seen a lot of houses hit the market this week.
Yeah.
Like, a lot more than they have all year. So it's a good sign.
But on the flip side of that, I have seen something in the last 90 days more than I saw in the previous 90 days. Price reduced, and now we're seeing. I love how people mince. They this is real talk. We're not going to give you the fake talk.
No.
They say price improvement.
Yeah.
Come on. This is
It's a
me
reduction.
Stop it. You reduced the price.
Yeah.
Come
Does
on.
improvement mean it goes up?
Yeah. Does it go up?
Is it improved?
Every once in a while, you get somebody like that. When his house doesn't sell, they'll say, "I'm going to raise the price." Yeah. You do that because the market's really.
Yeah.
They're like lemmings coming toward your house.
It's working really well right now.
How's
where
that
we are.
working for you?
Yeah.
Not good. Not good.
No.
But yeah,
No.
so on the one hand, we're seeing things that have been sitting for a while. That people are starting to take the cuts.
Yep.
And then we're seeing more inventory come in, which is why they're taking the cuts
Yep.
because they have more competition.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's why I always talk about if you're going to be working with an agent, especially on the listing side, on the sales side, CMA. CMA is not comparative. It's competitive market analysis. You want to know what your competition is doing because that's what's going to affect your price. If you're in the only game in town,
yeah,
not a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely not. No.
Okay.
I've experienced that as well. We all have.
Sometimes people, and the other thing that we sort of bristle at when somebody says, "You have to come over and see my house." Oh, well, coming over to see your house, yeah, because it's unique.
Yeah.
It's a one-of-a-kind house.
Heard that.
Here's the problem with the one-of-a-kind house. There's only 2 buyers for it.
That's true.
One of them is already living in it.
Yep.
You got to find the other monkey.
Yeah.
Where is he? I don't know.
Yeah.
He's looking for the unique house.
It's a truly unique property or something that's really very specific to one person's style. It's a little bit tougher of a sale.
Yeah, and one of the things I think is also peculiar about our market specifically is we have the city, and then we have the north towns,
Yep.
and the south towns.
Yep.
And it may as well be the Hatfields and the McCoys,
Yeah.
because they're very different. You can sell them all day long in the north towns. Not so much in the south towns.
Yeah, no,
It's kind of like Leave It to Beaver place in the south. I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a good way.
Yep.
It's very New Englandish.
Yeah, absolutely. Architecture, the style.
Center entrance colonials, you sell them all day long.
Oh yeah.
Tudors, real tough in the south towns.
Oh,
yeah, very tough.
And I with Tudors and because they have the stucco finish, that's the south towns get a lot harsher weather around here.
Yeah.
So the stucco is a product that's tough when you have the expansion.
They use drive it now.
Yeah, drive it. Yes, yeah.
It's not actually stucco.
No, yes, yeah. Stucco was a term when I was living out west.
Well, you could have extra stucco. Now
drive it, yeah. It just doesn't, with the expansion and contraction, with the cold and the warmth, it just doesn't last.
And the weather conditions are very different, north towns versus south towns.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, although the weather bands are changing,
yep,
they're moving a little north.
Yeah.
Joel, our fearless leader, Joel Husser, he's in Montreal today for the international convention at EXP. He lives in a place called Grand Island. It's about 10 miles north of the city.
Yeah, I'd say.
Okay.
Yep.
And it also has the privilege of being the largest inland island in all of North America.
No.
It's not a big island.
No.
You can cross it, I think, in 6 minutes.
Yep.
But it's got statistically notoriety for being big. But the weather's very different on Grand Island.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's sometimes a fact.
Yep. It's split right in between Lake Erie, Lake Ontario. There's a lot of different currents, wind.
Yeah. So different weather patterns, and when you have different weather patterns, there's a community in Orchard Park, which is where the Buffalo Bills play, a wonderful neighborhood called Eagle Heights.
Eagle Heights, yep. Yeah,
beautiful. It was one of the first big, sexy subdivisions in Western New York. A lot of trees, and you're up high. Mm-hmm. So because there's a lot of trees, your roof, where you might get 25 years in the north,
yeah,
I think you can get 25 down there.
Yeah, there's a lot of mossy roofs over there.
Mossy roof. Yeah,
I've noticed that.
So it's not just how much you're spending; it's where you're spending it and how you're going to spend it over the future months.
Absolutely, yeah.
So your maintenance might be a little different there than here.
Yeah, snow plowing, right?
Snow plowing.
You would have to have a snow plowing contract or a good
Things
snow
that you
blower
don't, you
down
just
there.
don't think about unless you live here.
Yep.
And something I called summer driveways,
Summer driveways.
as opposed to the winter driveway.
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
If you see someone who's got a driveway like this,
Oh boy.
not a winter driveway.
No. Well, you're sliding to go get the mail.
Oh my! If blacktop, I was in East Aurora. Every time I pass this, I say, not a winter driveway. As soon as you come over Maple Road, there, the driveway is like this. East Aurora gets a lot of snow.
Pounded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in the South Towns. You're in the snow belt, and it's beautiful. And I loved living there. But yeah, man, I'd hate to be that schmo.
Yeah.
When that snow starts flying.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yep. Hazard. Absolutely.
And I'll call it to people's attention.
Yep.
I did sell a house in, odd enough, in South Buffalo last year, and it had one of those driveways.
Really?
And I said, now you're a South Towns girl, you know how this works.
Yeah.
And she said, oh, I'm okay. I got four-wheel drive. I said, okay, as long as you may have to throw the kid to push it up the hill.
Yeah.
As long as you're good with it, she's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah. Good. Good.
Yeah,
But South Buffalo, you guys can get right on the edge of those snow belts.
we are
too.
right on.
Yeah.
When I look on the weather map,
Yep.
I always look on the weather map, and the line is right where my house is.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah,
on the line.
I said, I'm on the right side of the line this time.
But all it does is take a little bit of a wind gust, and then it's all over. You're right in
And
the
then
middle
you have
of
the
it.
wall. We had the wall several years ago.
Yeah.
I can remember I was driving, and I said, oh my God, I got to drive. What is that? I don't even know what it is.
Yeah, yeah. It looked like you're going into
crazy.
a black hole.
Oh, my God, crazy. So that's what's going on in the market. I
Yeah.
mean, so things are heating up and slowing down. And it's like breathing. It just keeps happening. But be mindful of those key point indicators. And there's lots of them. But the big one, we think,
Yep.
this is our opinion, days on market, man.
Yeah.
You track the days on market, it tells you an awful lot.
It really does. Yep.
Yeah.
Helps both buyers and sellers.
Yeah.
That's crucial information.
And I bought a house 20 years ago. It was a great house. It was featured in the Buffalo News. It was a historical house, but it didn't have a basement.
Oh, that's
Okay.
rare around here.
Very rare. Which is interesting because once you go south of the Mason-Dixon line,
Yeah,
no one has
no,
a basement.
no.
They just don't.
No.
Okay? And no one cares. Well, if you had a basement, what would you use it for? Well, you'd store things. I had a 3-story barn. Wow. And I had a loft over my 2.5-car garage. I had storage coming out my eyebrow.
It was.
And I had the little, what they used to call the Wizard of Oz basement, the Bilko doors.
Yep.
But it had the heating system and the electrical thing and the hot water heater, all the stuff, the mechanicals were down in the basement. But I knew when I bought the house that it would take longer to sell. I knew that. And the reason why it sat when I bought it is because there's a prejudice, which is a word we don't like to use in the real estate business, but in this case I can, about houses that don't have basements up here.
Yep.
People just love to have basements.
Yeah.
And if I show a house, you realize this house doesn't have a basement. There's a few houses around. They built them on bedrock.
Yep.
They can't have a basement. In Amherst,
Yeah.
you can't have a basement in some of these houses. It's because of some people just say, I don't want to look at it.
Yeah.
Well, what are you going to use it for? I'm going to store things. You got a 3-story barn. Right.
I still want to store things in the basement.
I still want to store things. This way you can flood.
Yeah.
See, I never had to worry about that.
Yeah.
All right.
Exactly. Yep.
So,
all preferences.
all right. So wrap it up.
Yeah. Thank you for tuning in. Please follow, like, subscribe. Feel free to throw us any questions if you'd like us to talk about it on the show.
We have some guests dropping in next week and the week after that you don't want to miss for sure.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Outrageously courageous guests. You're going to love it. Thank you very much. I'm Brendan Cunningham, the real estate doctor, saying, like he said, tune in.
Thank you.
Thank you.